All right, welcome everybody to our new program. I should say, calling it Coffee with a Go-Getter. This is where we get to meet and learn about our current, the incredible members that are in our Go-Getter community. And I cannot wait for today. So particularly because we have a special guest today. But before we get to meet our guest, I'm just going to do a quick intro. My name is Ruth. I am the co-founder of ThisIsMyEra. So my guest today, he's accomplished so much and he's not done yet, guys. He is the founder of Query House. He's a coach. He's a consultant. He's a speaker, a writer, an artist. Whew. That's just to name quite a few. And I cannot wait to chat with him. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Tom Atkins. Hey, Tom, welcome.
Hello, Ruth. It's good to see you.
So glad to have you here. Thank you so much for taking this time. And you're officially my inaugural guest on the Coffee with a Go-Getter.
Well, I
this
think
could go
it's
so many ways. So if it flops, we'll be like, first guest.
Nothing happens without giving something a try. So
that is true. That is so true, especially for 2021. It's like, hey, at least you got to try it out. If it doesn't work out, you gave it a shot. All right.
there you go.
All right. So, Tom, I'm a little bit familiar with who you are because I did my due diligence and I've gone on your website and I've communicated with you. But for our go-getters that are in this community that don't know who Tom is, please tell us, who is Tom Atkins?
Well, I spent about 35 years in the broadcast integration business, which basically means I worked with and owned companies that design and built TV studios, control rooms, and that kind of thing. But I've never had I can tell you what I am and what I do in 25 words or less kind of answer. Because as you said, I'm also an artist with a national following. I am a poet with a few books under my belt. About 10 years ago, I left the broadcast business to move into the coaching realm. And so I have done that. I've continued to consult with companies, particularly in developing leadership within their own companies. I'm 65 years old. I'm married. I've been married about 3 years. And I have 3 kids. They're grown and they're all across the country. And that's kind of who and what I do.
Okay, that's good. So I know you're Virginian born and you raised in the South. So why move to Vermont?
Well, I moved to Vermont 12 years ago this year. And I originally came up here. I had been through a divorce and I came up here because of love. I was drawn up here by a woman I was doing a relationship with. It's hard to do relationships at 11 hours away. So you figure out, the only way you're going to find out if it's going to work is that you got to get together. Right. I have portable work. I can do what I do anywhere in the world because we have these kinds of technologies. Yeah. So I moved up here. The relationship did not last, but I fell in love with Vermont, and 12 years later, I'm still here.
You're still there.
Yeah.
So now we all know, and now the go-getters that are watching this now know that you are an author. So of all the books that you've written, which one is your favorite one?
Oh, I wrote a book about 3 years ago called Dancing with Depression. And it was about my own journey through depression and getting to live a really full life despite the fact that I battled depression for 15 or 20 years. And that's my favorite book because of all the things I've written. That's the one that has touched people in a place that really means a lot to me.
Yeah, and it's relatable. Or I think it's when it's based off of personal experience.
I'll never get rich on it because I think I've given away more copies than I bought, that I've sold. But whenever I encounter somebody going through this, I give them a copy of my book.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm pretty sure that's more fulfilling. Like knowing the little that I know about you, it seems like the impact and the results that come out of it is more meaningful than, the sale that you would get out of it, because you could potentially bump into somebody and they would say, hey, I read your book and it transformed my life and it did this.
It is. And it really, that's the reason I got into coaching. After doing same thing for about 30 or 35 years, having reached a whole lot of success in it, I said to myself, okay, there's really nowhere else for me to go. So what about my work really fulfilled me? Didn't just make me lots of money, but what fulfilled me? And what really fulfilled me was the people who had worked for me or worked with me that I had helped getting from their point A to their point B, and help them find a transformation that they wanted to make in their own lives. And so that's what I've done.
That's beautiful. And it reminds me of this Tony Robbins quote. And he says, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure.
That's a good one.
It is a good one. It's one of his, and I've read a lot of his quotes, but it's one that has always stuck with me, because when you look in the world right now, there's so many unfulfilled millionaires or billionaires. You have all the money and all the success in the world, but is what you're doing giving you fulfillment? And that's what that reminds me of. So
I'm working right now on a course called Creating a Meaningful Life. Not a successful life, but a meaningful life. It's just going to be a little one-off course, but I think we all want to matter.
Yeah.
Matter beyond what our bank account is, matter beyond. I mean, that's one of the things I love about what you guys do at This Is My Era, because you give back so much, beyond just selling, a whole bunch of these.
You got the yellow one.
I love the yellow one.
Well, that's good. Well, speaking of This Is My Era, since you went there, how did you learn about This Is My Era? It always fascinates me, because one of the things, and I've always kind of thought about understanding how people found out about This Is My Era.
Well, you guys advertise on Facebook. You happened to come up at a time that I was looking for maybe a shift in the way I did my own planning. Every few years, I kind of step back and say, is everything I'm doing working? Is it not working? And I felt like I had to make some changes in the way I was doing things. So I was searching for planners that would let me do that. And so I got yours. I got your email, not your email, your Facebook ad, and went on. And, one of the things you do is that you show all the pages and how they're supposed to be used, and how one leads into the other to create a whole process to help you accomplish the things you want to accomplish.
Yeah. That's good. And I actually personally remember your order coming through, because at the beginning, I used to be in there looking at every single order that came in, because I'm like, oh my gosh, we got a sale. Oh my gosh, we got a sale. Because it was so exciting when you're starting something new. Yeah. And I would see, and I remember getting our main email. We got an email from you about I believe you were doing a giveaway, or you were doing a review or something. And I was like, oh, who's Tom? And I was like, who is that? So I went. So when they told me, I'm like, what? I want to respond personally, because I do spend time in the emails. Even though we get a lot of emails a day, there are moments where I'm spending time in there, and I actually respond directly to most of the people that get responses. If they're personal or questions asking about, impact or donations, I usually am like, give me those, because I want to respond to those people.
I recommend your planner to a lot of my clients.
Yeah.
And,
thank you. Yeah.
And I have yet to have one say this sucks. They all love it. So
yeah, that's good. That's really that's so happy to hear. Now I do remember that when I got the email, I was like, oh, he's doing a giveaway. Okay, I'm happy to give a planner. And then we sent a planner, and then I remember you came back and you're like, hey, I did the review, I did the giveaway, here's the link. And then I went and read, and I'm like, okay. So I got on your website and I just kind of went down a rabbit hole. I'm like, oh wait, he has a website here. Oh, he writes books. Oh, he does this. And it's like, and it's pretty interesting when you get to know customers that way. An interesting story, actually. Michelle, which you guys know, Michelle Reeves. Michelle actually also started as a customer of This Is My Era. She bought the planners and she reached out as well. And we were so intrigued and we're like, hey, I need to know more about anybody that reaches. I'm like, any customer that reaches out, I'm like, oh, I want to know more about them because they took the time to reach out. And she reached out at a time where Kuda and I were actually traveling because Michelle's based in the UK and Kuda and I have family there. And we happened to be going there. And Michelle happens to live in the same town as Kuda's sister.
Oh, really?
Which is strange, so strange. So when I got her message on Facebook, I was like, "Oh, that's strange. We're going to be there next week. Let's meet up." So we got to the UK, and I was like, "I'm going to meet a customer," and we met up with her and just loved everything about her. And we were like, "Oh, she would be great to be part of the This Is My Era team," and there we are. So it's just always so incredible when customers like find out about us. So you had talked about, you were in time where you were looking to, you review and see where you are in terms of your planning and you looking to incorporate different things. So how were things for you prior to, adding the planner to your daily routine in a sense?
Well, I had always done what I guess a lot of people probably would do. I had a planner and I wrote in it every appointment and I wrote in it everything that I was supposed to do. It wasn't a planner. It was a calendar.
Mm-hmm.
There was no planning going on. I was doing time management. And planning was sort of a piece of paper I kept on my desk with the name of my projects on it to look at every day and say, what do I have to do on each of these projects today? That was my planning. But you supplied a really nice process. And I always tell my own clients that if you're really going to succeed in something, you need a process to get there.
Mm-hmm.
You need a way to continue to be persistent so that you don't go there. And then you need something personal. Usually that is a coach or a mentor or someone who can work with you, because that person both makes you accountable and acts as a great encouragement to you if they're doing things well. And what I like about what you're doing, there's a lot of people who make planners, but you have put things in place to handle all three of those things. The process is all the stuff in here that takes you from here are my goals to here's how I break down my goals to, okay, here's how I'm going to do things, to, okay, how much of my day did I spend today actually accomplishing my projects, not just filling time. That's the process. And it's a process that works. And yours would be a good planner if that's all you did.
Yeah.
but that's not all you do. Because there are encouragements and benchmarks inside of your planner that help people. The biggest problem I see with folks is them being persistent in pursuing their own success. That they will get discouraged, or they'll lose track of the benchmarks, or it feels too there's a whole host of reasons that they might be. But you provide, both in the book and through the Friday get-togethers that you do.
Yeah.
Which I just wish more people came to, because I think it's such a powerful part of what you do. That helps with persistence, and it also adds with that personal touch. And by now adding what Michelle Reeves does, I think you've added to that, all of it: process, persistence, and that personal touch that people need to really succeed. So it's not just one or the other, because I don't think you make it with one or the other. You have to have all three. Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's really good to hear, because sometimes it's like
I tend to get lectury, and I love what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. Sometimes it's nice to hear, because it's so different when you're on the other side. It's good to hear the perspective of, okay, there's actually value to it. People are actually like it. So keep doing it or not. So that's good to hear. So let's get a little bit personal because I think people on here will be like, oh yeah, well, we love the planner and all the businessy stuff, but let's get to know Tom a little bit more. So in this last year, and I know a lot of people have experienced a lot this last year. What do you think was, has been the biggest challenge for you this last year?
Staying not just in touch, but staying in connection with people. That may sound strange because we're all on Zoom and we're all on this and we're all on that, but I love to travel and go see my friends. In fact, I'm sneaking away for 2 days to Maine tomorrow to go see a longtime dear friend of mine who's living there right now. And we just couldn't do that. I'm also a part-time Methodist pastor in a little church up here in Vermont. And a lot of my congregants are much older. The technology, they don't do technology. Some of them don't even have computers.
Right.
And so staying in a place that's not just in touch, but in connection. That is because I think that's what a lot of us have missed more than anything.
That's definitely interesting. Now I did notice, I know we had like a little chit chatting before that and going back and forth, and a lot of our community members, obviously, because we've talked about it on the Fridays, and I've highlighted and told people, hey, reach out to Tom, make sure he's good, and all of these things. So people want to know how, before we go, a little bit more, is like, how are you doing since surgery and everything that you had going on in these last year?
What they don't know is that about 18 months ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. They did surgery a little over a year ago. I had a pretty long recovery from that. They thought they had gotten everything. We found out this fall, well, not quite. So I've been doing radiation treatment. I finished my last radiation treatment in middle of January. Yesterday, I did my final, let's go take a test and see if we did any good. There is no detectable cancer.
Yay!
So a great weight is gone.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Congratulations. This is incredible. Oh, this is amazing. That is so, so good to hear. And that's so good. This just made my day. Now, I was reading, you were like, you're generally a low-key guy. What does that mean? I think you're like low-key, high energy.
Well, by low-key, I mean, I don't really get excited. I don't really get mad. I don't really, I'm pretty calm when things go crazy. I'm not pushy. I'm not a pushy coach. There are some, and that works for some people, but I'm not. I tend to want people to lead themselves to a certain place. I'm an introvert. I haven't suffered nearly.
A functional introvert.
I am, but I haven't suffered nearly as much as most people over this last year with the coronavirus. But at the same time, I keep a lot of balls in the air. I always have had. I think when I first started talking to y'all, somewhere in the process, I asked, how many goals should I have? Because I had a problem. I ran out.
Yeah.
You put like 10 in here. I said, no, you're just supposed to be 2 or 3. Well, that doesn't work for me. I typically have a lot of things going on. So except for this period where I've been going through the radiation and stuff where I had no energy, I generally have the energy. I'm not a type A, but I get a lot of stuff done. My wife is always telling me, you're so efficient.
Hey, Hey, that's good. That is good. Efficiency is always good. It's never a
But the
bad
funny thing
thing.
is, being efficient allows me to take off at 3 in the afternoon sometimes and go sit on the sofa and
Yeah.
read because I've been efficient
Yeah.
all day long.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So since we've talked about, the biggest challenge, let's talk on the flip side. What has been the biggest accomplishment in the last year, or we could say in your whole life, maybe something that's still
Oh,
relatable now? Like you feel like, okay, this has been my biggest accomplishment.
oh boy, that's a harder one than you think. Um,
There's a lot, isn't there? You have a
well,
lot of accomplishments.
well, I don't know. I have a lot of accomplishments. I've done a lot of stuff. Um,
Yeah.
Here's what I think, and this is not something that most people would expect.
Hmm.
Uh, I came through an ugly divorce 15 years ago. My wife ended up with both of the kids, and we were separated by a lot of miles. Uh, about 4 or 5 years later, my kids left what was a very dysfunctional situation and came here to me, and they were very broken.
Hmm.
And simply by caring and loving and allowing them to get to a better place at their own speed, they have done so well.
Mm.
Uh, Flip side of that is the woman I remarried. I married 3.5 years ago. She had a daughter who was not very happy with the whole
Hmm.
fact that she and her husband had gotten divorced,
Hmm.
and she wanted nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Same process, simply accepting and loving and caring, and she calls me dad now. I mean, we've
Mm.
come that far, and if I've accomplished something, it's helping those kids get to a place of emotional security.
Oh, that's beautiful. Mm. That is
The other
beautiful.
stuff's
I love
gravy.
that. I love that. So, and it sounds like there's a lot of experience and a lot of pain, but initially a lot of love came out of that,
Oh,
right?
it did.
And
It did.
sounds to me too as I heard the same. I think I heard it in church or somewhere where it's like your test or your story becomes your testimony for somebody else's experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
and it's like life is not happening to you, it's happening for you so you can use those experiences to better the lives of others.
yes.
And so that sounds beautiful, and that's what really reminds me of that. So if different or if not the same thing, then it could probably be something else. But what kind of advice, if you were looking at, your future self right now, what would you tell your future self in this moment?
That the bad stuff that you think is a crisis really isn't.
Hmm.
It really
Isn't that
isn't.
crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, uh, I was not always sort of, I won't say blasé, but as easygoing
Yeah.
about things that went wrong. Things go wrong all the time.
Hmm.
I think emotionally, the cancer I went through 18 months ago, if I'd had it in my 20s, I probably would have been suicidal. And that was like,
Hmm.
okay, we'll just get through it. Life goes
One
on.
day at a time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We sweat so much stuff, and there's really no reason to.
And it's often things that we don't have control over. It's
It's
the ones we
always things
stress
we
over
don't
the
have
most.
control over. It's always things we don't have control over.
And it's so strange to me because I do that to myself too. Like, why don't I focus on the things I can control? I spend way too much energy on the things I don't have control over
You
than the
know,
things I do.
yeah. It's just anxiety is such wasted
Mm.
energy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand what's going on with anxiety,
Mhm.
but
Yeah. I,
it doesn't get you anywhere. It
that's
just gets
true.
into way. It just gets in the way. It robs you of your joy.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
good. That's a good one. So still on the topic of advice, what would you say was the best advice you've ever received, and who gave that advice to you?
Fellow named Kevin Thompson. He was a partner in one of the firms that I started. Well, this probably goes back to the late 80s, early 90s. And he said, ask questions. Just ask questions. It's a cliche. There are no dumb questions. There are no dumb questions. And if I even think it's a dumb question, I'll say, this may be a dumb question, but because there's so many people who know so many things, and everybody's got a story, and some of them are magnificent and some of them are tragic. Some people have learned incredible things out of them. And so you just ask questions. My wife's a pro at that. I'm good, but she's great.
But you also have to ask good questions.
Well, you have to ask stupid questions. You'll get to the good questions.
Yep. Eventually, right? You weed through them all until you get to the good ones.
Don't be afraid of people.
Yeah. Yep. That is true. That's one of the things I think that a lot of us need to understand a lot more is we're merely people. Don't be afraid of people, and also don't be afraid to ask for help. That was one of my biggest lessons, was being able to lift my hands up and say, nope, I'm not good at everything. I need help.
My experience in life has been that people, no matter what level they are in their life, and there's always a couple of just real nasty exceptions, but for the most part, they are always willing to talk to someone who earnestly wants to learn from them.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to sit on an airplane next to Ted Turner, who founded Turner Networks and CNN. And for a 3-hour flight, he answered every question I asked, because I was just getting into the TV business and there were things I didn't understand. And boy, I got an education.
It must have been refreshing for him to be in a place where somebody is willing to learn the wealth of knowledge that he has.
I stumbled into a place on Tybee Island, Georgia. It's right offside the coast of Savannah. Little dive diner. Ran into Randy Newman, the Short People guy, the singer, musician. The guy did all the Toy Story songs.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I was just fascinated because I was a big fan of his. And we ended up having this long conversation. When I was 25 years old, I would never have had the courage to talk to somebody who was famous. If they're famous, if they're a high muckety muck, if you think they're too rich, if you think they're too powerful, there's not. Nicest politician I ever met in my life was the first George Bush.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And I guess a lot of people probably wouldn't see that, right?
No, he looks very stiff, upper crust.
Yeah.
But he, a group that I sang with sang at the White House for him. This was a long time ago, and we went through a line. They gave us a little set of cufflinks that said the White House, and you expect him to say hi. He stopped and talked to every one of those 20 kids, including me. Asked them where they're from, what they wanted to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
People are generally nice.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing, we have to get past the exterior of what we see, because what we see is not always what it is.
What we see is usually what we imagine. It's not what's really there.
Yeah, that is so good. That is so good. So I have one more question for you.
Drum roll,
And
please.
this one is one that I'm actually so excited to learn about, that I'm like, I always ask people, I'm like, so knowing what you know now about life, would you have done anything differently, like where you are now?
I would like to think I might, but
Yeah,
the truth is I just make different mistakes. So these mistakes worked out pretty well. I,
that's good.
I,
I love that.
I have a magnet which sticks in the center of my refrigerator. I'm not a refrigerator magnet kind of guy, but I have this one, and it says "Make new mistakes." That's all it says.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
and
And I think, yeah, that's
yeah,
good. That's good.
so I might not, because who knows where the different mistakes I would make would have led me. And I love where I am right now.
Yeah, yeah. But I do like that magnet bit too, because if you choose not to see it for what it is, because from my head, when it says make new mistakes, I'm not stopping there. I think perhaps the meaning is, you learn from your mistakes,
Yeah.
right? So it's the lesson that comes out of that. They're not really saying, go out and be stupid.
No, but don't make the same mistake twice or three times or four times.
Hoping to expect a different result,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, Tom, thank you so much
Thank
for
you. It's good
sitting
to
down
talk to you.
and chatting with us, and to our go-getters watching. I really hope you got to learn a little bit more about Tom, and just understand who it is. And if you want to continue this conversation or learn more about what he's doing, you know where to find him in the go-getter community.
That's right.
He is always there. So please connect. Let's, do life together. Thank you once again, Tom. And everybody,
Thank you.
remember, you are just one goal away. We'll see you on the next episode. Who's it going to be? We'll find out.